Hey tubers, welcome back for another adventure. So what you're looking at is the Honda TRX250X. Craigslist Shark, bought it a while ago, came with a spare engine that jumped timing, and here it is. Now the story on this and the spare engine, parts were borrowed off of both of them. And I believe when I first got this thing home, I did start it. I'm not exactly sure what carb I used or what exactly I did, but I think I did get it running. And then when I discovered that it had VIN type issues, I kind of put it aside and, you know, kind of moved on to other things. But anyway, it's time to get it started. And I told you guys it came with the carburetor, but the carburetor did not have the idle mixture adjustment needle valve, so I dug up a needle valve out of a 300EX rebuild kit, and I put that in, and I put it all together, and I went to start it, and it won't start. So this is basically a no start video, no start TRX250X video, and you know, I'm going to go through the troubleshooting because I'm sure occasionally somebody either buys one of these or, you know, has one of these and it won't start, and time is passing and they try this and they try that and they try the other thing and it still won't start. Now what do I do? So let's kind of go back to the beginning. Oh, and by the way, I think I've more or less figured out that this is a 1987, and the way I did that is on the 3 aluminum rims that it came with. See, it's upside down, but you see that 986? 3 of the rims had a very similar date code to them as that, so I believe this is an 87. So this is a bit of an old timer. So given that it was in parts and the wiring harness is messed up, you know, you kind of go back to the beginning. In my case, I have this portable CDI box, so I could put it on there and I could check to make sure that I do have spark. And that's not, by the way, even with the portable CDI box, that's not something to take for granted. If the thing won't start, check to make sure you have spark. You might have a bad spark plug, or your CDI box, in my case, might need new batteries, or sometimes a wire slips off the inside. So do make sure that you have spark. I've even had it on a couple of the Big Reds and TRX 250s, no X or anything else, or SX after them, where there was a problem with the pulse generator. So you can sit there and turn it over or crank it until you fall over. It's not starting. No pulse, no spark, no start. So you kind of start out with the spark. Timing for a 250X motor, you don't have much choice because the pulse generator runs off the flywheel and there's no timing to that, right? I mean, if you've lost timing, that means the magnet fell off the flywheel and there's no way this thing, it won't spark. So if it sparks, that means the ignition timing is good. So, but that's not necessarily true on the like if you have a 200S motor. It's a chain drive up to the cam, and if there's a plate with the CDI on it, you can move the plate back and forth and all that. So once in a while, you know, if you have an unknown bike that somebody worked on before you got to it, you can end up with a timing problem. And as a matter of fact, there's only a magnet on one side of the thing that goes by the pulse generator. You can actually take that out and put it in upside down and be trying to start your engine with your pulse generator 180 out. And on a 4-cycle engine, that won't work. It'll work on a 2-cycle, but not on a 4-cycle. So spark, timing, and you got the spark plug there. The next thing going on, and this is where I suspect my problem is, the fuel fuel air mixture, you have the carburetor, and you have the intake manifold. Once again, remember, this carburetor was not complete, and this is not the carburetor I used when I initially started it. I think I used a PZ27 and a homemade intake manifold to kind of put the whole thing together here to get this thing started the first time. So given that, I'm kind of trying to troubleshoot a bike that hasn't been started in a long period of time and a carburetor all at the same time. So I now suspect this is where my problem is. The next thing to think about is a sound mechanical engine. And what do I mean by that? You need to have compression. You need to have tight valves from a leak tight point of view. If you have part of your compression leaking out, your intake valves particularly, it'll never start. And you got to have your valve timing correct. So just quickly, we could go through that real fast. Now, I used that little wrench on the engine to get up to the point where the piston is up at top dead center. And how do I know I'm at top dead center? Because I have this little hose in here that's touching the top of the piston, and I kind of moved it back and forth until the piston was once again on top dead center. So what's supposed to be going on when you are at top dead center? Your valves are supposed to be closed, which means you should have valve lash, and on this case all 4 valves. So listen. So being able to shake that means that the valves are loose enough for the linkage to be loose. So that's all really, really good. So top dead center, all that is loose. And the other thing is to make sure that the flywheel timing is in the right place. And maybe I can show this to you, and maybe you won't be able to see it. If you kind of look in that hole, hopefully you guys could see it. See the little notch on the flywheel? It's lined up to this little notch there. Right, where's my finger? There you go. See that little notch there? And there's a notch on the flywheel. And all that stuff is lined up. Once again, hopefully you guys can see that. Yeah, now maybe. So that tells you that the timing's all good, and we're top dead center. I have not done a leak back test on this engine. That's the next thing I could do. With everything at top dead center, you kind of hold it, and you hold it by putting a non-ratchet type wrench on there, and tape it or tie wrap it to that so the crank can't turn. You put air pressure into the cylinder, and you listen to where it leaks out from. Is it leaking out one of the intake valves, one of the exhaust valves, or is it leaking into the crankcase? You can kind of tell the intake leak by, modulating the carburetor and putting your ear next to it, or opening and closing the choke, whatever you got to do to be able to kind of hear it there. You can tell if it's leaking into the crankcase by taking the oil plug, and as you take it and you put it in and out, you can kind of hear a little difference in sound. Or you can put your hand over the exhaust or ear up against the exhaust and kind of turn the air on and off, and you will hear a little something if it's coming out the exhaust. Minor amounts of leakage are okay. I mean, my system has a gauge showing you what the percentage of leakage is. You set it up to a certain pressure and you do that. I'm not going to do that to this engine. I'm thinking my problem is this carburetor, and that's what's fighting me. So I'm going to go back to messing with that. As I was cruising around in the Horde, I found a 300X carburetor. So I think I'm going to try to see if I can't get that one in decent shape, put it on here and try it. When it comes to bringing bikes back to life, kickstart bikes only, no electric start, are a pain in the neck. With a kickstart, for every kickstart you're able to put into this thing, with an electric starter you actually get like 10 RPMs for every kickstart try. So the 250X here is a pain in the neck. It's a good sized motor, it's a kickstart. I have a replaced hip, so kickstarting a 250X is not the best thing in the world for me. Quite honestly, that might even be a little bit of my problem. So this is the first video, because obviously it's not running. I went through a few things that I would check. I'm just surprised with this thing. It's not even trying to kick over when I hit it with starting fluid. The starting fluid of nowadays doesn't have the oomph, doesn't have the bang, doesn't have the whatever you call starting fluid. The volatility, I guess, is the proper word of old starting fluid of yesteryear. They probably changed it because people were doing dumb things with starting fluid. So, or maybe they changed it to try to keep today's modern engines from hurting themselves. I don't know, but it doesn't have the woof that it used to have. So that isn't helping my situation either. But I'm a little surprised it's not even kicking over with that. So I'll keep working on it. When we get it running, you'll see another video. Hey tubers, let's take a quick look at the spark on this thing. What I did is I took this cap off the end of the crank. It's easy enough to do. You just use a washer and you put it into the slot and spin it out, right? Not all that hard to do. Once I did that, my portable CDI box is on here, and you know, one wire going to the blue and white coming out behind the flywheel, one ground going to the spark plug, one ground going to the engine. And the reason why I want to do this is this does not have an electric start, so kind of kicking it and looking at the spark plug all at the same time is honestly difficult. So it looks like I turned that on, and I think you guys could see it, right? So you guys could see it sparking away, and we go to the next step in troubleshooting. Hey tubers, still working on that no start Honda TRX250, and just from yesterday's list we finished off. We know we have spark, we know the timing is good. This is a carburetor thing, and we're going to talk about that now. Sound mechanical engine, we know the compression is good, and if you try to kickstart that thing, the way it fights you, kicks back at you and so forth, it appears as if the engine mechanically is good. We know it didn't jump timing because we checked that yesterday also. So now it's to the point where we got to work on the carburation for this thing. And I told you guys I've always been a little suspicious of this carburetor. So what I did is I put a PZ27 on there, and that's easy enough to do, right? There's your typical PZ27. Your problem is it's got a bolt-on type flange, and these guys have a slip-in type flange. So you get yourself a plate, right? It's going to go on there. You get yourself a plumbing adapter, right? And as a matter of fact, I think this tells you what kind of adapter that is. reducer, and it's 1 1/4 to 3/4. And you set this up to go into the intake manifold like that, right? Obviously you solder it on you solder it up and you fill in the little gaps here. I put an extra little piece of pipe in there to expand it so it fits a little better. You trace out a nice looking flange on this guy, drill your holes and all. And the nice thing about the 3/4 is it actually, if you're accurate enough, it actually fits in here nicely, right? So that's how I made the adapter, and you guys could see the adapter right there, right? If it's a little too small, you could put some tape around it. Just don't leave any gaps in the tape. Make sure your intake is nice and tight. You don't want leaks, because then it's not going to start, because you have an intake leak and it's too lean a mixture to fire. So I have my portable CDI box on here. You can see everything set up. Choke is on. I'm gonna put the camera in its mount and then turn the CDI box on, and we'll give it a try. Okay, I think you guys could see most things. CDI box is on, choke is on, there's gas, and I think that's all of it. Well, we'll see in a minute. When you turn the engine down, that's when you can really hear if there's any noise. So we got it running. Now what I got to do to put this thing together, I obviously want to get a real carburetor onto it. If I'm going to use some of the used carburetors, some of the pieced together carburetors, some of the recycled carburetors, let's go with recycled. What I'm going to do is I'm going to test them out on probably that 300EX, because it has an electric starter. It makes it just so much easier. Kicking these things over is a lot of work. Something I didn't show you right up front, but I have a fire extinguisher up here with me. Obviously, you know, I'm trickling gas into here, and you know, portable CDI box and all that. And it's not like I can just roll this thing out all that easily, right? If it gets into trouble, I'm going to have to deal with it in place. So there's the extinguisher to do that. So, fortunately, unfortunately, I don't know which way you want to describe it, I got this thing back to the condition it was shortly after I brought it home. I got it running again. Maybe I advanced it a little bit because I put a set of tires and a chain on it. And once again, sliding into the unfortunately part of it, now I have to start playing hide and seek. I don't recall if this thing came in with a gas tank or not. I'm just not remembering. I believe that one did, the 300EX did, but I don't know that this 250X did. So I have to go play hide and seek to find it a gas tank. I mean, I could always rig something up, and more this thing is drifting toward just being a rat bike, you know, something with whatever plastics I can put on it, and you know, I'm just going to use it as a beater around the property. It looks like I'm going to try to do a little better with the particularly that one and that one, those two 300EXs. I'm going to try to make them look and function a little bit more like a real one. Had a deal cooking, and I guess at this point it's more or less fallen through. A really flaky, I think it was Let Go. There's a guy out in Jersey, Lafayette, New Jersey, who has a couple of 250Xs, and you know, I sent him a, here's my number, text me if they're still available type thing. So he texts me, and he's telling me they're located in Lafayette, New Jersey, but he's got a Massachusetts area code cell phone. I mean, not unheard of, but I keep saying, you know, your description isn't very good. Could we talk before we come out, before I drive all the way out there? It's, you know, over an hour for me. What he's describing is that he has one of these complete with no spark, and you guys know I eat that up, like, love that. And then another one in parts. So to me, what I like to do with a situation like that is to buy all of it, every nut and bolt and the whole shoot match, and try to get a decent price on it. So, you know, once I have all of it, for what I don't get from him, I can put together with what I have, and hopefully, you know, get some good stuff happening. And it just, you know, he keeps contacting me and saying, I can't talk right now, and text, and then it's like, okay, when could I come see him? But before I do, I'd kind of like to talk first, and you know, I'm just, you know, I guess I'm not dying for the deal, so that's another reason why I'm not in a big hurry to get out there. What I'm trying to do as we speak now is get the beginning picture, so to speak. All right, what have we learned from this video? And just quickly to go through it. The nice thing about a PZ27 carburetor, they're about $20. They're really cheap. The plumbing and brass and everything else you need to make that adapter, I mean, call it another $10, which should be fat, right? That should be a lot of money. So, in theory, rather than spend, you know, 50, 75, whatever, to get back to the OEM carb, if it's a difference between walking and riding, or having a bike for $25 or having nothing, I mean, you could always call me and I'll buy it from you, give me a good deal. But here's a way of getting yourself moving forward. Personally, I like the PZ27. I think it's the greatest carb in the world. On this bike with the 250, this PZ27, you know, it'll if you're out racing another 250X and you know you're giving it, he's going to beat you. This PZ27 is like going to restrict you and hold you back some. But for putting around the lawn or just romping around the lawn, you know, the difference once again between walking and a PZ27 is exactly that. You're riding with a PZ27. Without it, you're walking. It runs fine. I mean, you can gun it up and all that, but once again, you won't have the top end, you won't have the power. It's going to be like having a bit of a governor. But it goes on there pretty easily. About putting the rest of the hose on it and so forth. This is a little longer than the old carburetor. So, you know, you'd have to rig yourself up something or put one of those air cleaners that bolt right on. I think it'll sneak under this seat in plastic, right? One of those cones on the end there. So, okay, that's it for this series. We'll fire up something else. I got a million projects. I really got to get them done. So, especially, it ain't going to stay summer forever. I want to thank everybody for watching and commenting and subscribing. Please keep your feet down, keep your heads up, and get out there and enjoy each and every day. Take care now. Bye.